Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show, a podcast by SaaStock. Here we interview SaaS founders from around the world who've been there and done that, as they share the ins and outs of how they built their businesses, their operations, their path to securing investment, and more. Our mission with the podcast is to help you, the founder, learn how to scale your SaaS, maintain your well-being, and navigate the complexities of this ever-changing industry. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, and together we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly in the journey to SaaS success. Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, CEO and founder of SaaStock and general partner at Back Future Ventures. And delighted today to be joined by Steve Oriola, who is the CEO at Unbounce. How are you doing, Steve?
Great. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, good to have you on the podcast. A first time. I've known of you for many years in the SaaS industry, and I think certainly previously, one of the companies that you've been CEO at was Pipedrive, which is well known CRM within the space. Good to have you here. And Unbounce, I think, a very familiar product, certainly in the marketing world. I think also very much in the SaaS world. So great to have you with us. And you're calling in from New York?
I am.
Yeah. How is it? I'm planning on going to New York in January. And actually, my first ever, I've been to New York many times now. So the first time was 20 years ago. And it was in January. And I was like, I've made a mistake coming for the first time in January. Because I don't
know what's going on in the world, but it seems like fall and spring don't exist anymore because it was warm 2 weeks ago and now it's frigid.
Yeah. I just remember going out. I just had jeans. I had a big jacket. I was wearing my Converse sneakers, and every maybe 10, 20 yards, I had to go into a shop to warm up and then come out and then go into a shop to warm up. And then in the end, I gave up and kind of went back to the hotel and just, it was pretty brutal. So I'll be better prepared this time. But Steve, tell us a little bit and tell the audience about yourself. Would love to know you as a person. Who is Steve Oriola?
Yep. From a career perspective, it's been software the whole time. And really SaaS since I joined Constant Contact in 2001, and that was my first time in a pure SaaS business. And SaaS was just getting started. I mean, SaaS as a concept hadn't really taken off, but we were in market with an email marketing solution for $10 a month at a time when it costs thousands of dollars to do email marketing. So pretty disruptive. And it's been SaaS since then, all marketing, selling, sort of front office SaaS applications. And Constant Contact was a 10-year run, pretty successful business. And I have some experience in CRM as well. Certainly Pipedrive, where I was sort of in the fold of their big investor, Bessemer. Got there and then did the first round with Bessemer. And so it's been SaaS for that period of time, and I have a pretty good feel for where it's going. So that sort of played into why we decided to put the two companies together.
Yeah, awesome. And when did you join Unbounce as CEO?
January 10th of this year.
January 10th of this year.
Yeah.
And why did you join Unbounce in particular? What was it about the company that attracted you? And
Sure, it was there's a combination of things. One, from a domain perspective, it was kind of in my wheelhouse. And I understood the business. I had discovered the business, I think in 2012, and thought it was sliced bread. And I was drawn to the fact that Unbounce had been a category leader for 15 years, was kind of synonymous with landing pages, and had a ton of brand equity. And that part I found really appealing, because brand, building brand and establishing real equity in a brand is really hard to do. And it usually requires being early in a category and establishing a leadership position. They had done that. And brands they just keep giving for a long time. And we still experience quite a bit of organic traffic and people who start trials. Many of them are just showing up because they search on landing pages, and Unbounce is consistently number one on page one. And honestly, that is a hard position to lose. So that was very appealing. And as well, the investor and the investor's intent of inorganically turning this into a bigger solution. The dynamics in the market are there's a lot of dynamics around things consolidating into more comprehensive platforms. A lot of that has to do with just how complex and fragmented the space is and how difficult it is for small businesses, medium-sized businesses, even enterprises to sort of wade through that and choose solutions. And it's very difficult to just build your MarTech stack from a wide variety of different vendors. There's a lot of pressure to be more comprehensive, more all-in-one. And that was a big driver. And it was, it was a discussion with the investors before I even joined that was the intent. So, that's a little more than why I joined. I sort of started to go into the next piece. But if you wanted to, if you want to, let's move on to that question.
And with that, I was just curious. So, was the scenario that the founding CEO, decided to step down and you come in, or had there been another professional CEO?
Fair, fair point. The founding CEO still on our board, chairman. Actually, there's two founders on the board, so they're still very involved, which is super helpful because institutional knowledge is important.
Yeah.
Because I have a whole large organization of people to lead. And no, the founder CEO had a health scare shortly after the current PE firm bought the company. So he had someone step in, and I replaced that person.
Okay. And can you also, as you said, like Unbounce has a very strong brand, and certainly if I'm living in the SaaS domain, which I am, I'm aware of it. But maybe for the audience, can you shed some light about what Unbounce is, and maybe some data about the size of the company?
Sure. Unbounce was founded in 2009. The original value proposition was you're spending money to get traffic to your website, and that hopefully turns into leads and then customers. And you're spending that money on digital advertising, pay-per-click, a variety of tactics, and you're sending people to your website. There's no context to the message that you were delivering to get them there. There might be, but it's sort of hit or miss. You need to get people to specifically pages that are contextual to the message that got them there, because you're trying to get them to do something. And that the original value proposition was, hey, as a marketer, this is much more optimal, and you don't have to go to the web team and wait a week to get your page built, right? You can build it, no code, WYSIWYG, design it, build it, and publish it. And that is the entry point for a particular campaign. It's contextual, and that helps with relevance, search ranking, all of that, because Google looks at that, right? Is it relevant? Are you bringing people to relevant pages? So that was the original value proposition, and it was pretty good timing. It really took off, and it was at a time where people were allocating budget to digital advertising quickly. So the timing was pretty perfect. So I discovered them in 2012, and the value proposition was that, and they were really getting a lot of traction at that point. About 2016, the realization was, and the founders had this vision that this can become an experimentation platform as well for marketers, so that you can start to get a sense for, what message is going to land best, right? So it is also, in about 2016, hired a data scientist who built a data science and data engineering team and built an experimentation solution. So if you move up in tiers with our platform, you then have the ability to do that. Hey, let's test 3 pages. Let's test 5 pages. And based on conversion, meaning filling out that form on the landing page, we can tell you what sources work best and what page is optimal, right? So you can pick a page. We then also that team built the ability to, route traffic to different pages. So we call that smart traffic. So suddenly it's an optimization platform, not just a landing page platform. And it's that today. It's a very robust solution. And people do a lot of things with it. And the business, in terms of, some of the data points that would tell you about the business, we've got, 14,000 customers, roughly. And, other data points that are important, we have tracked maybe 2 billion conversions from our landing pages. We crunch that data, and it goes into a conversion benchmark report that we publish annually. We just published the most recent one. It's broken down by vertical, and you can get an understanding of what's good performance, what's bad performance, benchmarks in the industry. Very useful tool. But the fact that we have that sheer volume of data is a real valuable asset that we're turning into, useful tools for our customers. We do things as well, like we evaluate the readability of landing pages and give people that information. Readability is, a topic we know a lot about, have analyzed quite a bit over the years. So there's a lot of advantage we have to the scale and the history of the company that we utilize.
I heard earlier it's private equity owned now, or backed. So I don't know what you would say there. Was it VC backed or bootstrapped before that?
It was VC backed.
VC backed. Okay.
Yeah.
And which is the PE firm that is now
Crestrock Partners.
Crestrock Partners. Okay.
Based in Denver.
Okay. Very cool. And then, so Steve, you've been in the role for a year, and 2024, I think we've seen for many in SaaS, right, has been quite a challenging year. It does feel like things are hopefully going to get better. Maybe the Service Titan IPO is a bit of a signal, in some sense, that the markets are going to open, and
right,
congrats to them. But yeah, I think we've definitely felt that, and software spending a little bit down, less funding in the market, a lot of headwinds, tailwinds in AI, but headwinds in SaaS. How have you felt this, within the business, like within your role and like navigating the company? Have you been feeling this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, certainly sales cycles have lengthened. A lot of deals slide. So yeah, we felt it. There are definitely macro forces that are holding a lot of us back. We have sunk our teeth even deeper into AI. We got good at generative AI. In fact, we were building generative AI solutions before OpenAI really took off. So we feel like we're very good at that. And that data science, data engineering team, Insightly, the company that we acquired, didn't have that. Hadn't made those investments. So in the synergies between the company, that's a big piece. And that team has been really oriented to the CRM since we acquired the company. So we're in terms of AI, the two things that we're looking to do is marketers. It's not just marketers, but I think marketing and sales, you make a lot of investments, right? And you get as much information as you can, and you make those investments, but it's always a little scary, Is it going to work? And one of the things that we want to bring to the market is more confidence in those investments through just better telemetry from the systems that you're using. And telemetry is kind of a geeky engineering term, but it's pretty fitting. It's, any system you build should be telling you about how it's performing. And we think that's important as we've integrated the solutions. That's been one of our key principles is, the system needs to inform and provide, a lot of relevant data back to everybody performing their roles through the whole funnel. And then the other piece is we need to make sure that we're making people more productive. So it's really about confidence in those investments and then adding really productive solutions. And that's where generative AI comes in. Examples of that are we're launching next week the ability to summarize an email thread. So think salesperson, in an hour I'm talking to the biggest customer I have or the biggest prospect I have. I've had this long thread going with my main contact, and give me a one-page summary. Things like that. We are very intent on making marketing and sales more productive, very intent on making marketing and sales come together and work more cohesively, and making people just a lot more productive.
Do you feel there's a need for SaaS companies, and Unbounce in this case, to become an AI first company? Do you feel that's where the market is going for SaaS? Or is it
Yeah.
just...
Yeah. No, I think if your solutions aren't intelligent, I don't think you're in business in a few years.
Yeah.
No, I think it's software now.
Yeah.
It's that fundamental. This is not a trend or a fad. People shouldn't be waiting around to see if it's real. It's real.
Yeah.
I just a few months ago we do mid-year reviews of our team, and it's always a painful process, right? You got to set aside a lot of time. You have to be really thoughtful. And the tool we use just introduced an assistant. You just click, you write a little bit, you click a button, it rewrites it for you. And I think it would have taken me a whole day to write my reviews, and I did it in about 2 hours.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So it's everywhere. And
Yeah.
and if you're not going there, you're not going to be in business.
Yeah. No, I agree. You still see, like, I think today or yesterday, sort of reading about calling AI, in certain articles or whatever, a trend, and is the bubble going to burst? But I think the shared belief here is that certainly that's not the case.
I would equate it with, is SaaS a fad?
Yeah.
SaaS was foundational.
Yeah.
And even before the term SaaS, people were talking about, this is an app, the internet's an application platform.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just a communication platform. So I think it's at that level.
Yeah. I mean, I've had just anecdotally because our conference is called SaaStock. Over the years, we've been going 9 years, but over the years, I think like even team members said, "Oh, you're a little bit worried about it being called SaaStock. What if SaaS is not around in 5 years' time?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm betting that we're keeping SaaS in our name."
Like saying, what if software is not around in 5 years?
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
Exactly. So I want to talk a little bit. I want to learn more about this merger, right? So Unbounce acquired Insightly. Tell us why, and what's that?
Sure.
What's the strategic vision there?
Sure. There were sort of wedge issues that led us to the strategic vision. One of them was, we built this fairly sophisticated optimization platform out of a landing page business. Yet, what are you optimizing for? Primarily, you're optimizing for the conversion from the landing page, right? Which is really valuable. I don't want to denigrate the value of that. It's tremendously valuable. But you're not optimizing for revenue. Let's optimize. Let's pick the page that gets us the highest ACV customers, after a sales cycle. Let's optimize to lifetime value. Maybe you have access to a support system, right, that you're drawing data from. And all of a sudden you're optimizing for not the highest converting categories or types of customers. You're optimizing for the ones that actually stay around and spend a lot of money. And We were able to get to some of that through integrations, but it just didn't feel optimal enough. And what I saw in Insightly was really first party data that would be really valuable for optimization of the entry point. And that was sort of the thing that lit us up about the idea. And the pressure to all in one. We fit well into MarTech stacks generally, but we wanted to really compete for more of that stack. A third of the Unbounce customers are actually agencies, and that's where we saw a lot of work needed to go into landing better within agencies and making sure that we secured our position there. So we felt like this would help there as well.
How did you go about the merger? Did you just send the CEO of Insightly an email and say, "Look, I want to buy you"? Or
No, they actually had a banker.
Okay.
So they had started a process, and
So they're on market. Yeah.
all the PE firms are sort of in that network of the bankers know them.
How long did the process take? And maybe what were were there any surprising things? I'm sure maybe you've done some M&A before, but was there anything surprising? Was it a smooth process?
Yeah, it's never smooth.
Yeah.
There's always a variety of investors with interests. So that caused it to take longer than I would have expected. So it probably took 4 to 6 weeks longer than we had planned, but nothing out of the ordinary.
What's the hardest thing about getting a deal done?
Getting the deal done is if you've got a variety of investors with on the cap table of the company that you're acquiring, smoothing that out and making sure everyone's satisfied, that becomes the most time consuming. So you spend a lot of money on lawyers and things.
And then I guess obviously you've got the deal done, which is great. You often hear, or sometimes I hear, obviously, then merging the two companies, can be quite painful sometimes. Different cultures, different people, different products, different, ideas. How has been the experience? How have you managed the post-acquisition part of the merger? What are maybe some of the learnings that you can share there?
We're feeling pretty good. I firmly believe that the cohesion of the leadership team is first and foremost, because you become the model for the rest of the company. And if the leadership team is integrating, working well together, making decisions well, that does cascade into the org. You don't even have to try. So we have a leadership team that is doing that, has ironed out any dysfunctions. I wouldn't say it's perfect. These things never are, but we have a leadership team that is representative of both companies that came together. Hard decisions to make in order to get that done. But we feel like we really scored in a couple of executives on our leadership team that had been at Insightly, really having a great impact. And the team is working together pretty effectively. So that part's gone well. Yeah, the biggest consideration, I don't know if it's the biggest consideration, but it's certainly foremost for me, is the cultures and how they come together. So we went through an exercise, and we did this leading up to the acquisition. I felt like I wanted to do this anyway, just at Unbounce, to sort of re-articulate the values. And then we shifted that to, okay, we're going to have two companies coming together. And we had enough access to people at Insightly who were in the know that an acquisition was happening, where we were able to develop a set of values that sort of really sat between the two cultures, because they were different cultures. And both cultures have had to move in order to accommodate the values. And we repeat them, we talk about them. We have all hands meetings every month where we point out people who are living the values and things that they've done. And, we also, survey the base of employees, and those values are landing pretty well. And that's an important part of it, is that people understand how everyone works and how everyone should be working and how we should be making decisions. And and we correct ourselves all the time on that.
We're both organizations, so I don't think I asked this earlier, but is Unbounce, was it a remote business? Do you have offices? Was Insightly a remote business, or was it in person?
Great. Yeah, great question. Both were remote. Insightly, so remote that they were able to not have office space, so they let their leases lapse, and no office space. Unbounce we still have office space in Vancouver, which is, the headquarters, has been the headquarters historically. We're subletting a lot of that space, but we still have a space for the team. Some people go in occasionally and work there. The IT team is in there every day. And then we congregate there for a leadership team, and we bring people in and go out to dinner and do all of that. Yeah, so everyone is very, very accustomed to working from home, but also very appreciative when we do gather the troops. 3 years ago, 20-somethings were saying, "I'll never go back." And what I'm hearing now when we put together gatherings is just appreciation for actually meeting people. I think people get a bit lonely too.
Yeah.
And work from home. And we take that on the road. We've got a lot of employees now in the Bay Area, so we'll be doing things there. I was just in Toronto yesterday and the day before because we have about 30 employees there, and we'll continue to do that. So
awesome. I want to shift gears a little bit as we go into the last stage of the podcast, Steve. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to know, from your perspective, what's the hardest thing about being a CEO?
Communication. Communicating, and that's sort of two-way, right? I think listening and making sure that the things that you want to communicate don't break down as they propagate, right? So you have to repeat things a lot, but you also have to listen a lot. And once you're over 100 people, it becomes very hard to listen. So I just before this, I did an hour Q&A we have a Berlin office with about 10 people in it. I did an hour Q&A, open forum, ask Steve anything you want. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to do those with some frequency so that I hear people, and it's not just the message coming down from on high.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest part of that. That is probably the most challenging. And then there's just the sheer volume of information, and what do you listen to and what do you ignore?
How do you look after yourself? Obviously, running a company at scale, can be taxing, and there are always ups and downs. How do you look after yourself so that you've got the right energy needed every day?
Oh, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. Except my wife.
Maybe because we care.
Yeah, that's right. You do try to make sure that any angst or frustration you don't bring home. Mm-hmm. That's sort of step one. Trying to maintain balance between work life and home life, and keeping them pretty separate if you can. That's important. My wife has a history in this industry, so it's a little hard. She likes to weigh in.
How do you? Can I ask then on that one then? Because for me, sort of personally, if I've had a shitty day, right? Sometimes it does happen, and I'm working from home, and I finish work. I just go downstairs into the kitchen, and my partner she can see something's up, and I don't want to talk to her. I don't want to talk about it because work is over. And sometimes I just kind of want to, shut down and that sort of thing. Yeah. So how do you separate that angst and that frustration from then going, home to your wife and your family and your kids? How do you do it?
We talk openly about it.
Okay.
And I listen because sometimes I don't maintain that separation, and it's it's a problem.
Yeah.
And she tells me and I listen. So I think it's similar to the employees. You got to listen a lot, and and think about it and be open to it. And I think also a fitness regime. The physical part's important because your brain is a physical organ.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're healthy, in your variety of ways to sort of, for me, it's almost a distraction. I say, okay, I've got to do my fitness routine, and it just helps me think about things. So I think that's important as well.
Is that daily?
Yeah. And, a variety of things. I do cold plunges or cold therapy, and that's sort of the most effective because it kind of shocks you. And, if you're in your head thinking about 1,000 things, you need something to snap you out of that,
Yeah. I think when you're like, I do cold plunges occasionally, and it's kind of weird because, as I'm speaking to you today, I'm at home and I live by the coast and we've got the sea there, which is a nature's cold plunge. And I actually I only cold plunge when I go into London, and I go to like a specific cold plunge place, and I'm like a little bit crazy. I don't understand why I'm just not going in the sea on a regular basis. But I think to your point, like when you're in the cold plunge and if it's -6, like I'm not thinking. I can't think about work or anything else.
You're thinking about breathing and
exactly.
not dying.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. And what I'm always curious to learn what people are reading, or maybe kind of like favorite books that kind of like help them. So is there anything that you can share there? Maybe something you're currently reading that could be interesting for the audience?
Yeah, it's not a business book though.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
No, my son's in a PhD program, and I'm reading a book by an academic that he might attach himself to write his thesis, and it's about truth in education. It's kind of a democracy project, so very timely.
Very cool. Very good. Yeah, I been running SaaStock for 9 years. Maybe the first 7 or 8 years, I only read business books, and then I've kind of got to this point where it's like, I don't think. Maybe occasionally I'll pick one up, but I'm just reading like fiction or biographies now, or
Yeah. And it might be. I've been at this a while, and I just find things are sort of repackaged. So if I think back to there's a few books that really impacted me, certainly early in my career. One is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. Very old book.
Yeah. Stephen Covey, right?
What's that?
Stephen Covey, I think.
Stephen Covey, yes. Yeah. And I just keep going back to that, and I haven't reread it in a while. I just sort of mentally go back to the concepts, and the one concept that really was liberating for me was to really draw a line around what you can control and focus on that. And that is such a source of anxiety, is worrying about things you can't control. And I say it all the time to my team. What can we control and what can't we? And let's not focus on the can't. Let's focus on what we have control over. And that circle, when you focus on it, just expands, right? And then all of a sudden, you have your hands on everything you need to have your hands on to be successful. Right? You got to start with the stuff you can start with. And that just has stayed with me for a long time.
Great stuff. We're at the end of the podcast, Steve. We really appreciate you coming on and us having this conversation. Hopefully, we'll see you perhaps at one of the SaaStock conferences in the US next year. Yeah. Where can people find you online if they want to reach out to you? Are you on LinkedIn, or what's the best place to find you and find Unbounce?
Yeah, LinkedIn for sure. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, mention the podcast. I'm trying to keep myself at a certain number. I've been on LinkedIn since 2003, so it's mention this, and I'll connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Steve Oriola, CEO of Unbounce. Really appreciate your time and sharing with the SaaStock community.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.